Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. How you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Let's see. What are we doing today? The 14 Slanders. This comes up in various Gosho and sutras, actually. And so that might be one of the things that as you're reading sutra, you'll race to your Buddhist dictionary or go to Google or Bing or whatever you use and look up Buddhism, the 14 Slanders, and you'll come up with all sorts of information. This is Nichiren's exploratory into the 14 Slanders. So from Nichiren, we'll get some historical context and we'll get some a daily life application, if you will, of what these concepts in Buddhism are about. This is it's not a very long sutra or a gosho, sorry, but it'll take a couple of videos to go through. So let's get into it, shall we? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, the 14 Slanders. I have received the string of coins, the horse load of polished rice, and the white quilted robe that you sent. That's quite a load of stuff that was sent to him. So again, a reminder that when communications are had between followers and teacher, between Nichiren and his various, whether it's inner circle or just you and I, just trying to communicate with him, there has to be a whole retinue of some monks, some just people, servants of monks, or lay people, somebody who owns the horse, maybe a farmer who donated the rice, maybe he's not there, or maybe he sends his son. So there's a whole crew of people that have to bring all of this stuff over hills and mountains and passes and so on and so forth. And they have to be armed because they may deal with samurai checkpoints along the way. So think of all of that when you understand when he thanks somebody for their offerings to him. He's recognizing a great deal, a great effort being made. And these very people are the ones who are likely to take back with them a response to not just an offering, but oftentimes these offerings would come with some sort of a letter, some sort of a request. Um, and so in this particular case, since this is titled The 14 Slanders, I'm going to assume this was from a, uh, a lay monk who is going to be responsible for some passing around of teaching. So this was written to, it's a reply to Matsuno. Written near the end of 1276, this letter was a reply to the lay monk Matsuno Rokuro Saimon. Four of his family received letters from Nichiren Shonin, his wife, son, and daughter-in-law. One of his daughters married Nanjo Hyo Shichiro and gave birth to Nanjo Tokimitsu. Interesting. So there's that's a name that comes up a lot when it comes to family donations and so forth. So this is a wealthy family, or well-to-do anyway. And Tokimitsu, a staunch supporter of Nichiren and his disciple Nikko. It is thought that Lord Matsuno was converted to Nichiren's teachings through this connection with the Nanjo family. This letter explains the 14 slanders, Mialos, blah, blah. Importance of unity. Yeah. So, as I suspected, the title lends me to believe that not only is this a personal letter, a reply in this case, as many, if not all of them are, but it's a little bit more than just a friendly thanks for the donation, here's a few words of wisdom. It's titled The 14 Slanders because this is a teaching that Nichiren expects will be spread to other members. So again, this is an example of Sangha, right? Not only does he write a letter to the recipient in this case, anyway, but this recipient is a lay monk. So this recipient is somebody who is spreading Buddhism, and by doing so is having meetings at his homes, gatherings at his homes, where he can read these teachings directly from Nichiren and have discussion with people, other practitioners, other monks, um, to get instruction on the way to practice the Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo teachings correctly. So, the 14 Slanders. Rolling fields and hills stretch out more than 100 ri to the south of this mountain. To the north stands lofty Mount Minobu, which joins the peaks of Shirane farther off. Jutting sharply up to the west is a mountain called Shichimen. Snow remains on these peaks throughout the year. There is not a single dwelling, other than mine, in the area. My only visitors, infrequent as they are the monkeys that come swinging through the treetops. And to my regret, even they do not stay for long, but scurry back to where they came from. To the east run the surging waters of the Fuji River, which resembles the flowing sands of the desert. It is extraordinary indeed that you send letters from time to time to this place whose inaccessibility makes visitors rare. So, to my earlier statement, he has great appreciation for anything he gets out there in his almost Satori-like retirement, right? I learned that the scholar Nichigen of Jisoji Temple, upon becoming my disciple, was driven out by his own disciples and lay supporters and had to give up his lands so that he now has no place of his own. That's got to hurt. You know, a notable scholar decides to follow Nichiren's guidance on Lotus Sutra practice, and the local shogunate ruler decides with his army of samurai to go in there and say, "Get out of here." And of course, all the lay supporters and the people around there, yeah, get out of here, because they're all afraid to be beheaded, right? So he gets ousted, loses his lands, loses his position, simply for declaring his allegiance to Lotus Sutra and Nichiren. What a time to be alive, right? Nonetheless, he still visits me and takes care of my disciples. So he's a place of, wherever he is, he's a place of sojourn, or not sojourn, but protection for other practitioners, students of Nichiren's. So that's pretty courageous. What devotion to the way! Exclamation point. Nichigen is a sage. He is already unrivaled as a scholar of Buddhism. Yet he has discarded all desire for fame and fortune and become my disciple. He has lived, not because being a disciple of Nichiren's is a tonsure of sorts, but that Nichigen himself, for courageously following a route that Nichiren has proven is the way of Buddhism, makes him an excellent scholar, realizing the truth, and courageous because of the time he's doing it in, right? He has lived the words in this sutra, quote, "We care nothing for our bodies or lives," end quote. To repay his debts of gratitude to the Buddha, he has taught you and your fellow believers and inspired you, Matsuno, to make these sincere offerings. All this is truly amazing. Absolutely. The Buddha stated that in the latter age, monks and nuns with the hearts of dogs would be as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. By this he meant that the monks and nuns of that day would be attached to fame and fortune. They'd be Buddhists in name only. They wouldn't be following the teachings correctly. Because they wear robes and surplices, they look like ordinary priests or monks and nuns. But in their hearts, they wield a sword of distorted views, hastening here and there among their patrons and filling them with countless lies so as to keep them away from other nuns or monks. Right? Come here. Our school's the one. This is the good one. This we're better. Thus, they strive to keep their patrons to themselves and prevent other nuns or monks from coming near them, like a dog who goes to a house to be fed but growls and springs to attack the moment another dog approaches. Each and every one of these monks and nuns is certain to fall into the hell of evil paths. Being the scholar that he is, Nichigen must have read this passage in the sutra. His unusual consideration and frequent visits to me and my disciples are deeply appreciated. We need coherence. In this time of threat and fears and violence, we need to support one another, lest we all cave into pressure, right? In your letter, you write, quote, "Since I took resolute mind and conviction in this sutra, the Lotus, I have continued to recite the 10 factors of life and the verse section of the lifespan chapter and chant the Daimoku without the slightest neglect. But how great is the difference between the blessings received when a sage chants the Daimoku and the blessings received when we chant it?" End quote. Interesting question. So he's already explored that Nichigen is truly a great scholar of Buddhism to take on with the courage he has, lose all his holdings, and in spite of all that, maintains an allegiance to the correct teaching. So when he chants the Daimoku, are his blessings greater than mine? I'm just a follower, right? I'm just learning. To reply, one is in no way superior to the other. There it is. Buddha is Buddha. The gold that a fool possesses is no different from the gold that a wise man possesses. A fire made by a fool is the same as a fire made by a wise man. You might distinguish, and I suspect Nichiren will, is that though the gold be the same, knowledge of what the gold's meaning is may be slightly different. But gold is gold, right? Buddha is Buddha. What you do and how you value your Buddha awakening is a matter for you to discern. However, there is a difference if one chants the Daimoku while acting against the intent of this sutra. There are various stages in the practice of this sutra, and various forms of slander exist accordingly. Let me sum them up by quoting from volume 5 of the annotations on the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra. That's a Tendai sect. That's Tentai teaching, right? Tendai. Chi Che. In defining the types of evil, the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra states briefly, quote, "Expound among the wise, but not among the foolish." One scholar enumerates the types of evil as follows. I will first list the evil causes and then their effects. There are 14 evil causes: arrogance, negligence, wrong views of the self, ego, shallow understanding. Oh, I know that, without really deeply understanding meaning, right? Attachment to earthly desires. Who among us doesn't it? That's the disease of humanity, right? Not understanding, or in other words, don't speak with authority about something you really don't understand to yourself or anyone else. Not believing, in other words, just memorizing and repeating without really understanding. 8. Scowling with knitted brows. That's an interesting one. Harboring doubts. We all slide into that one every now and again, don't we? That's nature of samsara. Slandering. Now that's an obvious one, right? But maybe not so obvious. Have you discounted your own altar, your own butsudan? Have you... See, slandering is any action or thought or deed where you disrespect the teaching that you're practicing. Ooh, it becomes tougher then, doesn't it? Despising. That, I think, is pretty obvious. Hating. Another form of despising. Envying. That's really related to attachment and desire, isn't it? And lastly, bearing grudges. And that has a gradation as well. All of these do. Bearing grudges could be, I hate that stool I have to sit on every time I chant. But it's also, that guy, I can't stand him. So I'm going to hold back any advice that I might give him toward this practice. That has bearing grudges and slander and arrogance, and it has several of these, right? And we find in Buddhism that this often happens. Buddhism is such a science of everything it talks about. And again, a reminder, Buddhism is about mental processes, attitudes, intent. So you'll find as you dig down to these fundamental concepts that they're very nitty-gritty. They really take apart the minutiae of things. And conversely, whenever one seems evident, it carries with it many of the others, if not all the others, like the 10 factors of life, or the 3,000 realms, the 10 worlds, on and on and on, right? So this is one of the things that fascinates me about studying Buddhism, is that once I grasp part of it, it melds into a bunch of others. You know, if you start to dig deep into any one concept, you end up learning tens, if not many tens, of ideas. This is how insights come. This is how those big aha moments comes. So this is why I encourage you, if there's one little thing that keeps popping out at you like a hair that's tickling the end of your nose, use it to motivate your insight, motivate your research, motivate your study. Because I guarantee you, even if it's just one word, you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. Things will start to pop like popcorn in the microwave. Oh, now I understand that. Now I get that. Or, whoa, that brings up that question. I don't think that's what I always thought it meant. So you research that. Study in Buddhism can be a bit like a treasure hunt where there are many treasures. It can be, you can make it fun because it is fun. It's very rewarding to expand your knowledge, your experience of life, which is Buddhism, right? So let's go on. Since these 14 slanders apply equally to priesthood and laity, you must be on guard against them. So it's not that yours will be any different, worse, better. We're all humans, whatever our hierarchical positions might be. Ultimately, we are everything, and everything, it's a song, isn't it? You are everything, and everything is you. It's an old Motown song I grew up with. It's really applicable here. Although that's a love song, why not? Sorry, I digress. Do I do that too often? Bodhisattvas, never disparaging of old, said that all people have the Buddha nature and that if they embrace the Lotus Sutra, they will never fail to attain Buddhahood. He further stated that to slight a person is to slight the Buddha himself. Thus, his practice was to revere all people. He revered even those who did not embrace the Lotus Sutra because they too had the Buddha nature and might someday believe in the sutra. Therefore, it is all the more natural to revere those monks and lay people who do embrace the sutra. So that's a very interesting attitude, isn't it? A very, you might say, a very core attitude to Bodhisattva practice, Bodhisattva way. No wonder it takes up a whole chapter in the Lotus Sutra. A whole chapter, you might say, on the proper attitude of a human being, but certainly a human being who professes to practice the Buddha way, Shakyamuni's Myoho Renge Kyo. If you really are a practitioner of Myoho Renge Kyo, here's a lesson in what your proper attitude should be as a human being to one another. See, the way you enter these questions pose different enlightenments or awakenings to human nature, our own natures. The fourth volume of the Lotus Sutra states, quote, "If there were a person who spoke only one word to curse the lay person or monks or nuns who uphold and preach the Lotus Sutra, then his offense would be even graver than that of cursing Shakyamuni Buddha to his face for the space of a kalpa." Do you understand why that, or what that statement means? It means Shakyamuni, a person who's achieved complete awakening, lives in their Buddha nature constantly. You go up to somebody who's that accomplished, that enlightened, and you say, "You're a this or that." That's a horrible, egregious offense, right? You would agree. God, what a moron, right? But what this is saying is that if you come up to me or you or a friend of yours and you guys are, daily trying to do your best, studying, chanting, and somebody comes up to you and says, "You're a stupid blah, 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 blah," that offense is far graver than doing that to Shakyamuni himself. Why? Shakyamuni is solid. Shakyamuni is solidly in his Buddha nature. He is Buddha incarnate. Every moment of his day is Myoho Renge Kyo. You're not going to shake him from that. You're not going to deter him from being Buddha. He's Shakyamuni Buddha. Fire away. You're being ignorant and foolish. You're making terrible causes, not for Shakyamuni, for your own practice. You see, Buddhism is always about how do you see the value of life? How do you see your proceeding through your samsaric existence? How are you treating your own Buddha nature? By making these causes, you may think that you're externalizing and blah, blah, you're spitting this out. It's not like a virus. These are causes. And what are causes? They're the way you shape your life experience. You're only hurting yourself. But if you do this to others who are struggling through their lives as you are, now you may be impeding their path to their Buddha awakening, their Buddhahood. what could be more heinous? It's like going into a hospital where everyone is recovering from COVID and going in there and sticking some COVID virus into their saline solution that's hydrating them. What the hell are you doing? Now, to somebody who's fully vaccinated and has no problems and is impervious to virus, you're just being an annoyance, and really it's the cause you're making a value of life for your own Buddhahood that you're damaging. But to people who are susceptible, how grave is that? Do you see the difference? I'm sorry to use COVID, but it's a very fresh example, isn't it? In the 80s, I would have said AIDS. Ugh, I hate even saying that word out loud because it represents such an amazing, torturous disease all over the world. And we don't have a cure. That's a little different. Assuming that we have people who could fight and never get that horrible disease because of their nature, then trying to give it to them would be futile. It would mean more about you, as words and thoughts and deeds always do. It's like my saying of what I say all the time about taking offense. It's exactly what it means. The offense is only harmful if you take it. So don't take it. Because in truth, it's not about you. It's about whoever's hurling it at you. That offense is their state of mind. Same is true about Buddhism. Right? I got a little off track there, but I'm trying to make this conceptually alive for you. The Lotus Sutra also states, quote, if anyone sees a person who accepts and upholds this sutra and tries to expose the faults or evils of that person, whether what he speaks is true or not, he will in this present existence be afflicted with white leprosy. In other words, you will feel the effects of this cause in your life now. This isn't some future condemnation. You're not, as religions would say, going to hell. No, you're going to experience hell right now because what you're doing is so life unaffirming. Not for the person that you're hurling this poison at, for yourself. Because everything is a mirror, right? Remember, self, that's one of the slanders, not understanding that our environment is ourself. So if you're spitting poison into your environment, what are you really doing? You're spitting it into your own life. You see how the slanders, they all, and this is the nature of slander in Buddhism, impeding enlightenment, impeding your realization, your awakening, your Buddha life. Now, before you go full depression on me, realizing how you've spent so much of your life doing these stupid, foolish things, please, if that's going on in your mind at all, immediately go to your Gohonzon and just chant until that feeling subsides and goes away. Because that is samsara. I'm not making an excuse for it. I'm just saying, be grateful that you can recognize it, that it's part of human experience. And as you chant about it, realize that we're all afflicted with samsara. And maybe that will raise great compassion in you to understand that as much as you desire your Buddha nature, so does everyone else. They just don't quite know how to get there. Some do, but many don't. And that compassion will make you see others with a much greater empathy, right? That's a proper way of using your Butsudan, your mandala, your Gohonzon, your Buddha wisdom, right? He goes on, take these teachings to heart. And always remember that believers in the Lotus Sutra should absolutely be the last to abuse one another. All those who keep a resolute mind and conviction in the Lotus Sutra are most certainly Buddhas. Treat them as such, even if their behavior seems completely contradictory. At the same time, remember too that it's your duty as a bodhisattva to correct obvious misbehavior. See, that's different. To correct and nurture one along their Buddha path is different than to berate them for the same mistake. It's about attitude and intent. Attitude and intent. Toward yourself as well as everyone else. Because they're the same thing. When one chants the Daimoku, bearing in mind that there are no distinctions among those who embrace the Lotus Sutra, then the blessings one gains will be equal to those of Shakyamuni Buddha. I'm going to let that rest for a moment. Think about that. The founder of this practice, the great teacher of over 50 years of his life, wanting to share that all of us can do exactly what he accomplished in attaining our most enlightened state. And I'm going to read it again. When one chants a Daimoku, Myoho Renge Kyo, bearing in mind that no distinctions exist around those who embrace this Lotus Sutra, then the blessings one gains, the merits, the rewards one gains, equal Shakyamuni Buddha. In other words, we awaken our Buddha mind, our enlightenment. A commentary states, quote, both the beings and the environment of the Avicii hell exist entirely within the life of the highest sage Buddha, and what is more, the life and the environment of Vairocana Buddha never transcends the lives of common mortals. There it is in another way. What does that mean? It means that all living creatures, no matter what their life condition, again, inherently have the Buddha enlightenment, the Buddha mind, the Buddha clarity, the wisdom, the calm knowing, the insights, the rewards. All that stands in our way are the illusions that we maintain and hang on to. What an incentive. So when you go back to the early teachings of the Four Noble Truths, and more to the point, the Eight Noble Paths, why are they noble? Because they are ways of conducting your life, behavior, mental behavior. How do you treat your life? What is your attitude? What is your intent with every thought, word, or deed? It's a big challenge, but it's also mind-bendingly simple. And now perhaps you have a greater grasp of how many monkeys, how big is that grove of sal trees, and how many monkeys are shouting at you. The nature of samsaric existence. It's massive. So you have to constantly be alert. Constantly be alert. Constantly aware. Situational awareness. What's your situation? Samsara. So in order to live your Buddha potential, you need to be constantly vigilant. This is why we practice night and day, to keep refocusing our minds, to do as Nichiren says, to live each moment of every day in Myoho Renge Kyo. Not an easy challenge, especially with all of the desires and the jobs and the financials and the relationships. And we have lots and lots of distractions. The Game Boys, the game consoles, the television, the radio, the instruments, go on and on and on and on. Boy, we have lots of distractions. You can surmise, Nichiren says, the significance of the 14 slanders in the light of the above quotations. And I hope that I've done a decent job of trying to relate this to your daily life, because that's what this Gosho is about. And in great measure, this is the practice of Buddhism, right? The Bodhisattva way. I'll go a little further. That you've asked me about Buddhism shows that you are sincerely concerned about your next life or your future. The Lotus Sutra states, quote, a person capable of listening to this law, such a person is likewise rare. Unless the Buddha's true envoy appears in this world, who is there that can expound this sutra in exact accord with the Buddha's intent? Moreover, it would appear that there are very few people who ask about the meaning of the sutra in an effort to resolve their doubts and thus believe in it wholeheartedly, no matter how humble a person may be. If his wisdom is the least bit greater than yours, you should ask him about the meaning of the sutra. But the people in this evil age are so arrogant, prejudiced, and attached to fame and profit that they are afraid that should they become the disciple of a humble person or try to learn something from him, they will be looked down upon by others. Status. They never rid themselves of this wrong attitude, so they seem to be destined for the evil paths. We live in the age of avarice, greed, arrogance, foolishness, stupidity, really. Just staunch adherence to wrong views. For the sake simply of having the wrong views. I mean, it's ridiculous. So living in this age, again, in a way, you could say it's a dismal situation to be in. But in another way, it's so dismal that it obviates itself. Well, I'm almost thankful that my environment is full of such nonsense, because it's so easily not labeled, but identifiable as nonsense. Realizing full well that identifying things is my samsaric mind at work. But can I use that samsaric mind, that mind of identification, to spurn me to my mandala of Gohonzon and deepen my awakening, deepen my understanding, deepen my compassion for how dismal life condition is across the world, that I can somehow have the compassion to embolden and take my Buddha nature and make it lift weights, make it so strong that I can send it to those people in Yemen, in Palestine, and in Israel, and help them awaken their compassion, their Buddha-ness. Can I push this into the world around me as I drive it deeper into my own? That world is my world. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. It seems so immense, so insurmountable, and yet my voice, my mind, my body can serve as a tuning fork to send, receive, embody, and push this Buddha nature into the world around me. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. And maybe it turns into these videos or the podcasts. With that kind of Ichinen, I hope that you deepen your faith, your practice, your habits, your mind, your resolve. Thank you for listening. This will take another video, maybe two. This is one to chew on, isn't it? This is very personal. It certainly has been in my practice. Maybe you sense that, but I hope it awakens your depth of resolve as well. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, you beautiful, wonderful, amazing Buddhas. I can't tell you how much regard I have for you, how much pride I have in you, and your courage. Never relent. And I'll leave you with that thought for the day. Thank you for being here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Please take care of your health and the health of those around you, because that too is your health. Take care. Bye-bye.